Hey friends, welcome to October's recap. I cannot believe how quickly this month has gone by, and it's been a very heavy month. So I'll jump right in. This month started um, with layoffs and hurricanes, and it was pretty intense. On the day that Helene came, they announced reorganization, restructuring, and layoffs on our team. Unfortunately, I was safe, but I had a lot of colleagues that were not. And so it's been very heavy, a very heavy feeling at work. Uh, Trying to kind of make sense of everything and figuring out who's going to do what and how we're going to accomplish all of the things. So it's been interesting to say the least. We had two back-to-back hurricanes, Helene and then Milton. And so this month, obviously we had the storm and then all the things that come as a result of the storm, right? So dealing with insurance companies and adjusters and contractors. I do have some roof damage. I lost my fence. So I've been working through all of the logistics of kind of organizing and planning how that is going to look for our household. Because of how heavy this month has been, there hasn't really been a lot of time for anything else. So I can't say that I've done very much movie watching. My daughter and I are still uh, wrapping up The Lovely Runner. And on the side, I had been watching a K-drama called The Atypical Family. And it was interesting. It caught my eye because it was about a family that had each person had magical powers. And they were all different, but because of the lifestyles that they were living in this modern world, they had lost some of those powers. And then enters the female lead, which brings back some of their powers, but in a different way. So that's a drama that I have been watching. In terms of books, I pulled out this oldie but goodie, Tarot for Yourself. I love this book. Um, and I got it and I immediately threw myself into it, and then I set it aside and moved on into other things. So this month I really wanted to dig in. I was able to get through a couple of the chapters of the book, including some of the exercises. And in fact, the last one was on the Celtic cross. And it offers, it's so interesting because it goes through all of the card positions and then it gives you different ways to read the cards depending on your school of thought, so to speak. So, for example, for card one, it gives you the traditional way to read it: Jung, AA, JK, and then other. I found this in particular to be very interesting, and let me see if I could bring it up. But you see how they've laid out the Celtic cross right over our chakras here. I I really liked this method of thinking about it. Was so interesting. So I jumped right in. I whipped out a deck and I laid out my Celtic cross and attempted the exercises in the book. And I'm looking forward to continuing this, not just setting it aside and moving on to something else. So next chapter in the book is all around the court cards. And I don't know about you, but we could all use some help with the court cards, no? I shared a little bit about journaling this month in my videos, and oh, I can't believe it. I finished my book, Project Refine Life. If you're watching, I finished my book, and it's not the end of the year, which means that I had to pick up a second journal, and I'll be starting this one, or transitioning into this one. So be proud of me that I jumped out of one journal into another one without saying, no, I have to wait until January 1st, 2024, or 2025 actually. Isn't that crazy? 2025. Wow. Another project I worked on this month was a volunteer effort, and it was related to one of the diversity resource groups through my work, the Hispanic Heritage, in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. And so what they were looking for was volunteers to read stories for elementary age children, record them, and then upload them onto a site for them to be able to access and show the students. This was going to an inner city school in New York, and I myself attended a public school in New Jersey, and I was really excited about doing this. So I did my recording, I read my book, uploaded the video. Now, I did upload it to my channel, but I left it unlisted because I was worried that it would interfere with the algorithm. But I'll include the link in case anybody's interested or anyone has young children that would get a kick out of it. I know for myself, I sent the link to my nieces, and they have been enjoying the video behind the scenes. So that was a lot of fun, and it made me feel good to do something, for a bigger cause. This month, I've also been meeting a lot of people. It's been super fun, very exciting. I have been able to participate in quite a few collaborations, which has been a lot of fun as well. And so it's added kind of a different lens to my current practices, and it's been awesome. I've really been enjoying myself, and I'm looking forward to doing more of that next month. In terms of decks, I feel like this month I have worked with more decks than I believe I ever have in past. So I have quite a few, and some of them are, regulars on my channel, so I won't take too much time on them. But of course, I spent some time with my Shadowscapes. You all know that this is my chatty deck. I have very special sentimental feelings towards this deck, and it Stek and I have a different relationship than I do with any of my other decks. And so when I'm in need of a gal pal and someone that I know that is not gonna pass judgment, that's gonna listen to my story, that's not gonna interrupt me, I will pull this deck out and we talk. So that is my Shadowscapes. The other deck is my little pocket deck. I crocheted this case. It's probably um, one of the few cases that I've crocheted because I wasn't happy with the way that it came out. I feel like I'm too much of a perfectionist for that kind of thing, and then I get upset and I tear it apart. They call that frogging, right? I frog the project and restart, and frog the project and restart, and it's just too much. So I just don't even do it anymore. But I shared this lovely deck, and this I keep in my purse, and so it's always handy in case I need readings on the fly. and I'm not home, right? So I love this deck. I always thought this artwork was fun and interesting. I guess I wish that it was bigger because it's really hard to see the figures in here. So but I really love this deck. I especially love like all the colors. It is Thoth inspired, um, but you can, for the most part, read it RWS. It is very RWS friendly. I will say that. So it's a nice little combination. And this deck is just, I don't know, it's just special. It's super teeny tiny. It was already small to begin with, but then I edged it. And it became even smaller. So that is my sun and moon. I did spend some time with Reclaim. This is a deck that I did not anticipate working with, but when I am overwhelmed or overcome with emotion, it has to come out, right? This deck helps me, and I mentioned this before, I don't use this the way that I use my other decks. But what I do with it is when I'm feeling a certain kind of way, I go through the images in this deck and I pull out the cards that speak to my heart the most. And then I look at the keywords and journal. And it helps me put a name to, I don't know if you can. My cat is having a good old time right now. I don't know if you hear the bell in the background, but anyways, this deck helps me put a name to the feeling that I'm feeling when I know that I'm feeling a certain kind of way, but I can't exactly like put my finger on it. This deck is so amazing for that. And you know, this was one of those decks that I was like, oh God, the deck, I don't like it. Um, I didn't want anything to do with it, but you know, my higher self knew better than I did, and I ended up getting it, and now I adore it. So that is my Reclaim Oracle. Another deck that I didn't anticipate working with, but ended up coming out was my this is called the Beloved Mary Oracle. I really like to work with Mother Mary energy, and I don't even know how I found out about this deck, but I saw it, I loved it, and I purchased it. And I don't think this deck is available anymore, but it's so great. The keywords are awesome, and it helps me connect in when with this energy when I need. I love this deck, and in fact, I had two Mother Mary decks. I had this one, and then I had another deck that was called the Modern Mary Oracle. But I found that some of the keywords in there I was having a tough time with. And after working with both of the decks, I decided to cull it. It wasn't the right deck for me. I listed it, and I think 2 days later, it was gone. So yeah, this has become my go-to deck. The other deck that was a surprise for me this month that I didn't anticipate working with, but ended up coming out, is my beautiful Soul Trees. Soul Trees Ascension. I love this deck. It's so pretty. Like, I don't have a lot of decks that I bond or have been able to make a connection with where there's no people in them. So this is one of the few decks that I have that kind of fit that space. Oh, this is the cover art. And I don't know, I think it's the combination of the keywords, the art makes me feel a certain kind of way, and it lets me tap into intuition when I'm looking at these cards. And I love to pair these with decks. And I used this with one of my darker decks, and it was a little bit, shocking, but it kind of worked, right? Because there's so many cards in this deck that tap into specific energies, right? Like, what's this? This is mind. See? And even this one, like this doesn't have a tree. Well, I guess it could be a tree. It's liberation. But there's a lot of cards in here that are kind of like that. And so it makes it easy. And the colors, the palette in this deck is it makes it easy to pair with other decks as well. So yeah, this was a deck that I didn't plan on, but I pulled it out and I'm glad that I did because it was amazing. The rest of the decks are decks that I pulled out because I hoped to work with them. This one is an oracle. This is Alice in Wonderland. And I have used this deck in readings for others this month, but I haven't yet used it for myself. So I still have it. It's a great deck. It pairs really well with a lot of my darker decks, and I like that it has a statement, but then it gives you a little bit extra. So you could go by that, but the guidebook is amazing as well. So you can go into the guidebook and do additional journaling, and it's just, I don't know, this deck is great. And this is not artwork that I'm like especially, like woo woo about. But this deck works for what I need, and the artwork doesn't bother me, but it's not my style. And I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about this artwork, but for this, it does what I need it to do, and it is cute. That is my Alice the Wonderland deck. Next deck, no stranger for me. I love this bag. This is my Dark Mansion. And this deck is just, I don't know, it's so awesome. I love it. And every time I use it, I get these, great readings, insight. It has like such a little snarky sense of humor, and I just adore it. Never have I used it and thought, I don't think we're gonna work well together. No, every time I use it, I'm like, I can't wait for next year. And I don't know that I need to only use it during certain times of year, but when you have a large collection, then I find that it's helpful to carve out time to be able to use them so that you can cycle through the decks and give them all some love. So this one is very much a favorite, and I love it very much, and I enjoyed using it this month, and it's my Dark Mansion. This deck had to come out, of course. It's my Wandering Spirit Tarot. It's funny because I think the creator meant for this to be called Wandering Spirit Tarot, and there was a typo somewhere. And so some of the material says wandering and some says wondering. But it doesn't really matter because I just call this, the girl in the skeleton deck. Because that's what the artwork is based on. I love this deck in a special kind of way. I mean, this deck and we have a love affair. I understand these characters. These characters have such chemistry, and I understand them in a very special way. I just love them. I love working with this deck. I do tend to pull this out during this time of year, right? The darker months of the year. But this is a deck that I would easily use throughout the year with no problem at all, because this is a deck that I really like to use for ego work. And I just love it. It is so good. It's such a good reader, and every time I use it, it's oh, I just fall more and more in love with it. Look at that. Gorgeous. So yeah, that is my Wandering Spirit Tarot. Wandering. A deck that is a little bit newer to my collection is this one. It's my Baba Studios deck, right? Bohemian Gothic. And this is a deck I think that it's going to take some time. This is not like an instant connection type of deck, or at least it won't be for me. But so far, I do feel encouragement as I've used this deck quite a few times already, and it does give very strong, potent readings. A little dark, sometimes they're a little heavy. I do feel like that. I feel like sometimes when I use this deck, I have this really strong feeling in my chest, and I think it's just the way. So I don't. This is not a deck that I would pull out all the time. I think it has a very specific use, and um, and so it's definitely going to stay in the collection, and I'll continue to work with it. Now, the colors in this deck are great. I love them. I think the biggest issue that I have is the cold foil, and that's what makes it hard. You see that? Oh, I was not a fan of that. Like, there's so much of it that it makes it really hard sometimes to see the cards. um but see, it's just tough. You have to hold them a certain kind of this is such a powerful card, right? That made me feel a certain kind of way when I was going through the deck the first time. But yeah, oh, this card, gorgeous, so beautiful. The reflections, as we would have in a Six of Swords moment. So yeah, that's my Bohemian Gothic. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. I do feel like I need to continue working with this deck, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And then the last deck is my Nightmare Before Christmas. This is a deck that I always feel like that's it. I'm done. It's on the chopping block. And then I use it and I'm like, oh, I can't. I can't because you know what? It's a fandom deck. It is quite pippy. And for some reason when I read with this deck, like I don't have a difficult time. It gives me very good readings. I find that this deck is a good reader. And so every year when I pull it out and I use it, I'm like, no, this can't go. It can't go. So I wanted to spend time with it this year because I was considering culling the deck, but after these past couple of weeks with it, I don't think so. I think this is gonna stay because it's a very interesting reader, and I have a lot of maybe like emotional ties to this film, and I just love it. And look at that. I mean, I don't have any other decks that have this kind of like vibe, where it's mixing the two. So yeah, this one's gonna stay. This one's gonna stay, and I'll pull her out next year and see what happens. So that is the Nightmare Before Christmas. So that was a lot of decks. I used a lot of decks. I did call some decks this month, but I did want to mention that I also purchased a deck for the first time this year. I've not purchased decks in quite some time, and there was a deck that I had been thinking about for a very long time. I actually backed it when it was on Kickstarter. I had second thoughts, and I pulled my backing. It just wasn't the right time. And I, I would say, like, overall, in my journey with the tarot and with decks, and specifically with culling decks, there have been two decks that I have thought to myself, maybe that wasn't the best decision, which is not bad if you think about it. And one of them is this deck, and that is the Tarot of Oneness. Now, I ended up working with a separate deck that I thought maybe could give me that same kind of vibe or energy, but I ended up not being able to bond with it, and that was the Spacious Tarot. I found it to be a bit too spacious for me. A lot of animals in that deck, and I struggle with animals. So when I pull a court card and I see, I don't know, a fish, I have a hard time like pulling the meaning from that card in that moment without having to rely on a book. But the Tarot of Oneness is quite unique. Of course, it does have a lot of animal energy represented in the cards, but I think it's that unique perspective. Um, and so, after some thought, I decided to go ahead and place the order for that deck. So that deck will be joining my collection very soon, and I'm looking forward to playing with it. So yeah, that's it. There you have it. That is my recap for the month. It's been a whirlwind, but I've been learning a lot, and I'm feeling really good these days. So, in case you're wondering, the walking pad did not come out this month. And that's okay. That is okay. Thanks for watching.